Hello dear students, I hope all of you are doing well. The topic that I shall be discussing today is non-verbal communication, which means that communication without using words. To begin with, first of all, let me discuss the differences between verbal and non-verbal communication. Now, verbal communication means communication that includes words. Verbal communication may be either spoken communication or written communication. And the different examples of verbal communications are like face-to-face communication, telephonic communication, emails, reports, and so on and so forth. Now, what is non-verbal communication? Non-verbal communication means communication without using words, which means that while communicating, we do not make use of any words, and hence it is also known as wordless communication. Now, there is a saying that actions speak louder than words. Thus, how we speak is even more important than what we speak, and herein lies the importance of non-verbal communication. The different types of non-verbal communication includes use of gestures, postures, eye contact, communication through touch, and so on and so forth. Now, as far as the broad categories of non-verbal communication, let me mention here a few terms which are very important. So as far as the different types or kinds of nonverbal communication is concerned, we need to keep in mind that the very first is Kinesics, the next is Proxemics, after that we have Chronemics, Vocalics, Haptics, and Artifacts. So these are the different types of non-verbal communication. I shall discuss the terms one by one in detail. The very first one is Kinesics. Kinesics means body language in communication. Body language is a powerful tool of communication. Body language, which means movement of arms, hands, head, eyes, etc. while communicating. It includes facial expressions, eye contact, gestures, and postures. Now, first of all, facial expressions. A lot can be communicated through our facial expressions. For instance, a smiling face communicates cheerfulness and happiness, whereas a grumpy or a dejected face may communicate sadness, disappointment, and dissatisfaction. A face with a wide open mouth and open eyes may communicate the feeling of shock or surprise. So a lot can be communicated through our facial expressions. Now, as far as eye contact is concerned, we need to keep in mind that we should always try to maintain a general eye contact while we are speaking or interacting with others, but we should keep in mind that there is a difference between looking at a particular person and gazing or staring at someone, because the moment we gaze or stare, that is looking fixedly towards a particular person, that may cause discomfort and uneasiness. So there is a difference, and we should be very, very particular about eye contact. The next is a gesture. Now, what is the meaning of gesture? Gesture is movement of hands or maybe arms, head, in order to communicate our feelings and thoughts. Few examples of gestures could be waving hand to mean or signal a goodbye, nodding head or maybe shaking head to indicate a yes or a no, tapping fingers that indicates impatience, biting nails, which means that you are very nervous. Shrugging shoulders indicate that you are indifferent or maybe disinterested. And there is one important gesture of defensiveness, that is crossing arms across the chest. That's a classic gesture of defensiveness, which communicates anxiousness and insecurity. So we should try to avoid these gestures. Also, pointing fingers while speaking with someone. So these are certain gestures that should be avoided. Now the next is posture. What is posture? Posture means the way one sits, the way one stands, walks. So even a body posture, that indicates or that signals a lot, or that may, try to give important cues as far as our personality is concerned. So we should be very, very particular about our body posture. Examples could be sitting or maybe standing in a straight, upright position, or maybe walking briskly or in a brisk manner. These are different postures, examples of postures. Now, after kinesics, which is basically body language in communication, we have proxemics. And what is proxemics? The word proxemics is derived from the word proximity, which means closeness. So proxemics is the role of space in communication. An individual maintains his or her intimate space, personal space. An individual has his or her social space, public space, around himself or herself. And invading one's territory or invading one's space may cause that individual discomfort and the desire to defend his or her space. So we should always keep in mind another thing, that even culture can influence a lot, the way an individual uses space in communication. That is also a very important factor that needs to be kept in mind. Now, the distance or the space that we maintain, for instance, while speaking with others, may show or maybe that can signal what kind of relationship we share with them. So space, that communicates a lot, the use of space in communication. After proxemics, we have chronemics. Now, what is chronemics? Chronemics is the role of time in communication. The way an individual uses or manages time can communicate much non-verbal information about his or her personality. For instance, if an individual always reaches late in any function or maybe meeting, event, or a social gathering, then this reflects his personality. And accordingly, we label that person as an insincere or unpunctual, a person who lacks discipline or maybe commitment. So the way an individual uses time can communicate much non-verbal information about him or her. So that is also a very important aspect or dimension of non-verbal communication. So after chronemics, we have vocalics. Now, what is vocalics? It's also known as paralanguage or the paralinguistic features in while we communicate with others. Now, vocalics is nothing but the vocal cues that accompany speech. For instance, intonation, accent, volume, pitch, voice modulation, and so on and so forth. So these vocal elements or the paralinguistic features that accompany speech enhance the verbal meaning, whatever we say, our utterance. For instance, a loud projecting voice of an individual may indicate dominance or maybe authority, and a low and a very soft pitch voice may indicate submission. So vocalics or the paralinguistic features, that is also a very important aspect of non-verbal communication. And now, haptics. What is haptics? Haptics is also known as tactile communication. It is a form of non-verbal communication in which we communicate through the sense of touch. So examples of haptics in communication could be communicating through kissing, hugging, shaking hands, and so on and so forth. So the sense of touch, it builds emotional connection, and hence people can communicate emotions and feelings very easily through the sense of touch. So haptics is another very important aspect or dimension of nonverbal communication, where we communicate without using any words, but only through touching we communicate a lot. Now, The last in the broad category is artifacts. Artifacts refers to physical appearance of an individual. This is the first non-verbal message received and can be used to develop judgments about a person or an individual. People are often judged on the basis of their physical appearance, what they wear, their dresses, their jewelry, their accessories that they wear. So thus people's dresses, their looks, their level of attractiveness, even these are all important non-verbal cues. So we need to keep in mind that we can assess an individual's personality with the help of this particular aspect of non-verbal communication, which is artifacts or the physical appearance. So we have seen in this presentation that there are different aspects, different types or kinds of non-verbal communication. That is, we can communicate without using words through different ways: use of gestures, postures, eye contact, touch, space, time. So there are so many dimensions of non-verbal communication. Dear student, I hope this video lesson helps you all to some extent in understanding the concept of non-verbal communication, as well as the different forms of non-verbal communication is concerned. If you feel that this video is useful or beneficial for you all, then do like this educational video and subscribe to the educational channel Belly Education. Hope to come up with more such educational videos. Thanks for watching.